Just want to thank. I think you do a good job.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate
If you
it.
need other information, always call.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Wednesday, March 6th meeting of the Lebanon Utility Service Board. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order and confirm that everything was advertised appropriately. There was a short working session prior at which no official decisions were made. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let the record show we do have a full slate of board members tonight. First item on the agenda is the approval of minutes from the February 20th meeting. If everyone has had a chance to review the minutes.
I'll make a motion we approve the minutes as written.
Second.
Motion made by Jim, seconded by Aaron to approve the minutes from February 20th. Any questions or discussion on that? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the 69K Plant Growth Management right-of-way clearing agreement. Mr. Jacob is going to address the board on this matter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is there anyone from Plant Growth Management here? Okay, I know that they were invited to attend. So let me give the board a little bit of background on this, and if I'm going too in-depth, we're kind of at a frankly we don't know what to do position and need some direction. Several years ago, the linemen actually did the clearing for Lebanon Utilities, and that's really not what linemen are trained to do. And we outsourced this agreement, and I think if there's any electric guys here, they can talk about how how our outages and our outage time reduced significantly after hiring a company to come in and not only analyze the miles of line that we have, but then to manage the clearing process. So in short, not stumping one way or the other, it's been my opinion that this has been a good thing. And there's also a liability issue and a public management issue that is nice to have somebody that does full-time manage. So that having been said, we worked with Plant Growth Management for a couple of years, and what that company does is they don't do the line clearing, they analyze what needs to be done and helps implement that program from a line clearing standpoint, whether it's taking down trees, clearing brush, spraying, etc. So that's really what they were designed to do. As we matured with them, we asked them to take on a larger role, and that was to manage the subcontractors who actually performed the services and did the line clearing. So not only does Plant Growth Management analyze our lines and what our system is, and that's why in the agreement you'll see a reference back to a 2014 audit that they performed. So they also did a pass-through of expenses with a subcontractor that they selected, and we set a contract maximum with them. The contract in front of you was for 2018, 19, and 20. They performed the services for 2018 and then contacted us and said, okay, it's time for a rate increase. And we took a step back and said, well, wait a minute, the contract does not provide for a rate increase. I've had some conversations with Plant Growth Management. I'm sad to see that they're not here today. But they basically said, well, we didn't understand that this was a 3-year contract. We didn't understand that we couldn't change the rates. One of our subcontractors is increasing the rates, and don't forget that's a benefit that we were providing to you because you asked us to. And I'm just passing along the conversations that I've had with them. I think Linda and Ed have had some additional conversations as well, and please feel free to fill in any gaps. But, so we're at a little bit of an impasse as to what to do. Plant Growth Management has initially indicated to me that they can do this through maybe this year, but they'll lose money, and aren't interested or really excited about doing this for 2 more years. So they sent us they wanted to amend the contract and amend the pricing. So we said, hold on a second, we need some direction from the board. So the way I see it is that we have maybe blend of 4 or 5 options that we can do at this point. Number 1 is do nothing. They signed a 3-year contract, hold them to their pricing. 2, we can amend the contract for 2019 and or amend the contract for 2020 to reflect these different prices. We can work with Plant Growth Management to let them out of the contract and figure out something different to do, or we can do kind of a combination of all of those in the 4th option, which is let them have a partial price increase for 2019 with the ability for us to step out of the contract at any time with 30 days notice and rebid the whole thing and send it out. The benefit to that is if we've got a termination provision in the amendment, that we have somebody that comes in that has a lower price or better service or a combination thereof, we can then terminate the contract. If we don't have any bidders, which is what we experienced a little bit some years ago, there's not tons of companies that do this, and again, it's the management, not just the clearing. So if we don't have any, if we're not successful, then we stay with the amended contract price for 2019 and or 20. So in your board packets, there was, I sent you basically everything that they provided to me, which included, some of their attempts at providing some price changes and what that would look like. So I wasn't real banged up on understanding from them, despite my requests of what they expected the price change to be. Nothing they sent was, they show in one of the exhibits a proposed 2019. You'll see that their prices have not changed. You'll see that there's not a huge proposed increase, but I don't collectively quite know what that's going to mean at the end of 2019. So I throw that to the board for some direction. I'm not quite sure what to do. Ed and I have talked about it at length, and we've come up with a few different options, but wanted to get some direction from the board since it was stepping away from an agreement that's been signed.
Okay, and can I just add a few details? Yeah, I totally agree with Jeff, but along these same lines, the last, when we selected Plant Growth Management from the records, it was 2012 or 7 years ago with an RFP. So that was a long time ago, and initially when they had the price increase, I wanted to get some budget prices to see what other people do this and what other people charge, and we're in the process of trying to vet that. We don't have prices from anybody else, and it is possible that they're the only ones bidding that. I don't have a spreadsheet to show you with how our outages have improved with Plant Growth Management, but I have testimonials from all my staff that we've really had a lot less outages having it managed by a third party. So I'll also say that it's not just a matter of cutting the trees, it's a matter of doing it the right way, because if you cut it in one spot on the tree branch, the tree dies, you cut it in another spot, it cuts it back and doesn't grow back as soon. And people like me that grew up in the city or people that are linemen don't necessarily know that off the tops of their heads. So it's a skill, and they're trained in that, and it prevents us from having people complain and want us to replace their tree or being upset that we cut their tree down. So it is good to have a third party do it. So I was initially leaning towards the option 4, where we would, they're asking for what seems to be a small price increase, give it to them, but plan to do an RFP to verify their pricing. And if they are really the only game in town, and that's the best price, we go with it, but it'll give us time to, in a coordinated and organized way, contact vendors and get people to bid on the project. But then again, they're not here today to really explain themselves, so
Yeah, that's disappointing.
That's an issue.
We don't have to sign anything right now,
Right.
correct? But
Correct, and I would not recommend signing the addendum today regardless. There's some edits that I want to make to that and talk to them about improving our position and not just giving up a price increase if that's what the board's will is.
For us to put it back as an in-house operation, as a part of the line crew, is going to add a lot of expense, And I think that if we move forward at the new price level, but price it out without signing the contract, they've reneged on the agreement, correct? So if we pay the increase until we find out that whether or not it is a good deal before we sign and you make your edits, I think that would be fair to everybody, if they're willing to do that.
I think you're going to have to go back, we're going to have to go back to them first. Would you, does everybody agree?
Well, I think maybe what I would do would be to operate in kind of a hybrid of what Dan's saying. And again, I want to be clear, I'm not stumping for anything. This is not we did our work in 2017 and bid this out and came back with a good proposal, and they're coming out saying, we didn't understand it that way. And as Ed mentioned to me the other day, he said, that's one thing, but if you have an upset vendor, you've got to manage that. And so I guess if it were my decision, I would probably amend the 2019 agreement to reflect their price increase, but allow us the ability with so many days' notice to terminate the agreement. And then I would do some homework and figure out who else does this. Let them know that that's going to be the case, but that would allow us the ability to step out. The other alternative is to do nothing. Those are the only two that I really see.
Right.
So two things, and Ed or Jeff may be able to answer these. Sounds like the service level has been reasonable. We're happy with the service they've provided.
Yes.
And the numbers that we have in front of us here from 14 to 18 looks like a very small increase of 6% on the field manager per hour and nothing else in the last 5 years. Is that right?
That's correct.
So possibly a proposed increase from them should have been expected, but it wasn't included in the last contract. If the service level is, we still consider it good, then it might make sense to, like we're saying here, maybe incorporate that for 1 year and then see where we stand and look for a better deal or a better service if there is one.
So what if we table this until we get the proposed edit changes and information from council to see if we approve and agree with what he's put in until the next meeting? Is that?
That won't be any issue on my end.
Okay.
That's what I think
Managing
we'll
the
do.
agreement,
Yeah.
but, so if I'm hearing you is to throw into the amendment, the terminate within 30 days.
Yeah, an out
And
clause.
throw it back to them and see what their response is at the next meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so do we want to entertain a motion to table this item? Do we need a motion, I assume?
So moved.
Second?
Motion by Dan, seconded by Bill to table agenda item 4 on the plant growth management.
Table it to the time-specific next meeting, right?
Next
Yes,
meeting.
yeah, next
Please.
meeting
Yeah.
on plant growth management clearing agreement. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that item is tabled till next meeting. Thank you, Jeff. Next item is substation maintenance, an action item. David Van Wy is here, and he's going to address the board tonight. Hi, Dave.
We do substation maintenance every other year, so it's up again. We went out for bid. I don't know if I need to turn that on, or we went out to bid. There was discussion earlier this year, and we decided not to do all the subs this year. We're going to do half this year and half next year to save a little money. So we decided to do Central West and PSI sub this year. And I went out for quote. I sent packets to 4 companies, and they all came back. They all came back pretty close. And EMT, or Electrical Maintenance and Testing Incorporated, came back the cheapest at $62,385. They are NETA certified, and I've worked with some of the guys before. These guys are kind of like linemen. They move around too, so they're all qualified. They're very qualified to do the job. So I'm just asking for board approval to move forward with the proposal from EM and EMT to go ahead and do the substation maintenance. I don't know if you guys have any questions on any of the work being performed, or.
Yeah, David, it's not really a question. I just want you to cover something we talked about as far as it's in the budget, and this is maintenance is very specialized as far as
yeah, we
maybe
budgeted,
beyond our normal ability to do.
Okay, yeah, we budgeted $185,000 to do this, but this was to do all the subs, so it only come out to $62,385. So next year when we do the other 2 subs, it'll be a little bit more, and things have changed. I mean, with this 69 line, we're going to get the LAO sub off our system, so we don't have to do any maintenance with that one anymore, so that'll be a savings there. What they do is we kill the whole sub, and they go in there and they test the transformer, they pull the breakers out, they test them, they test the relays to make sure the relays operate like they're supposed to. I mean, they clean up everything that needs to be cleaned up, they go over the battery rack. I mean, they do a full scale just testing of it. I mean, they'll come in, they'll do oil samples as well of all the substations, of all the transformers and load tap changers. And they also, while the subs are energized, they will take an infrared camera and take pictures of everything to make sure nothing's getting unusually hot or anything like that. I mean, and they basically just, it's just a full scale inspection of the subs.
Hey, David, let me ask you, and you may not know off the top of your head, but has this routine maintenance ever caught anything that we would consider substantial? Or, I mean, hey, I'm glad this was found, let's fix this now? Or
Not off the top of my head, but sometimes you will. My concern with the central sub is that squirrel climbed in there and got on one of the bushings at the sub, and so it took a high fault right at the transformer, and I really want that tested so we know, so there's nothing at issue with that. I mean, these subs are a couple $1 million. I mean, it's, to spend $60,000 looking at them is, to me, a very small price to do.
Yeah, I guess one thing I can add, not about the maintenance done here, but similar maintenance done other places, is that infrared camera, while it's energized, has caught many things in the past, because what you're going to find is there's 3 phases, and they have these lug nuts on them, and if one of them's a little bit loose, one of them's hot, and the other ones are cold, and that heat is what ends up generating the problem, breaking down insulation. And the infrared camera, other places I've been, have caught a lot of problems, and although they might not report back to you what problems they found, they might just fix them. They might just tighten up the lug nut, or they might just change some hardware and be done. So we might not have a list of that, but I'm sure it's helpful. So.
Actually, I do remember one thing. When infrared cameras were started to being used, someone showed up at our west sub, and they were showing how they used the infrared camera, and they're like, hey, your load tap changer is very hot there. Turned out we had a broken part in that load tap changer, and it wasn't. And the load tap changer, what it does is it manages the voltage coming from that transformer. It takes readings of the line there, and if it gets too low, it bumps it up. If it gets too high, it bumps it down. Well, with that load tap changer with broken parts inside, it couldn't do that. So you'd possibly send it too high a voltage or too low a voltage to your customer. So yeah, it's a definite benefit for the utilities to do.
So do you get a report back from these people?
Yes, they send a report and they tell you. And last time they found some minor things like the heaters weren't working in the subs,
Okay.
and I went, like the breakers had popped or whatever. They'll say you need to do this. Like with the oil samples, sometimes they tell you, hey, resample that oil, that transformer again in 6 months, just to make sure there's, like, water, there could get water, you can get water in your oil, or if it's called a dissolved gas analysis, and one of the gases you could get in in the oil is acetylene, and what that means is there possibly could be a piece of metal in that tank arcing from the electricity going through it, and that's not good. So even though it tells you, so in this just gives you a baseline, and you keep, every couple of years, you keep looking at it, and if things increase, you definitely do something.
All right.
Is there an industry best standard or a legal requirement for how often substations have to undergo this inspection?
No, we pick, usually, my understanding is industry standard is either 2 or 3 years, and we've always gone every other year.
So, but you said we're putting some off this year?
Yeah, I mean, we'll do.
So it'll be 3 years for those we're putting off?
Yeah, that'll be fine. They're newer subs, so it won't be an issue. Well, they're at least going to test the oil on those subs. So they'll at least look at the oil sample to see if there's anything. The oil will tell you a lot. So the relays and breakers will get looked at next year.
So all the substations will receive some testing?
Correct, yes.
And 2 of them is going to receive the extensive, if you will, complete testing?
Well, 3, the PSI sub, it's just 69 breakers, but they'll
Okay.
look over those breakers and the relays, test the relay in there as well.
Yeah,
So we will, in essence, be inspecting every substation at least every 3 years, is the bottom line?
Yeah, after next year, they'll all get it every other year. We'll just alternate what subs we do every other year, but
It'd
yeah.
be every other year then, okay.
Yeah, yep. Plus the enterprise sub, which is on the list for next year, all we maintain out there are the breakers. And IMPA owns that sub, so they test the transformer, and we just test the 12 kV breakers we have out there, so.
Okay. Do you know what their frequency of testing is?
I think Duke tries to do it every other year.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for David? All right, thank you, David. If there's no other discussion, I would entertain a motion on, motion on item 5.
I'd move to approve the quote from electrical maintenance testing for a not-to-exceed amount of $62,385 for the semi-annual maintenance of the utility substations.
Second?
Motion made by Jim, seconded by Dan, for approval of substation maintenance. Any other discussion or questions? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion carries. Thank you, David. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
thanks, Dave.
Next item on the agenda is the copper compliance study. Mr. Ryan Oettinger is taking the podium to address the board tonight. Hey, Ryan.
Hey, thank you very much. I'm coming to the board today to ask for a compliance study for copper for the wastewater plant. We, in 2018, spent $92,000 in chemicals for copper removal from the wastewater plant. And in a 12-month period, we exceeded the IDEM number that they put on, the parts per million that they put on the plant, 5 out of 12 times while spending that kind of money. My wastewater guys reached out, did their due diligence and networking, reached out to companies, to other wastewater plants in order to try to find a solution to this problem. Unfortunately, for the wastewater plant, it was never designed to remove copper. So it's been a battle that we've been fighting for years and years and spending a lot of money on. If we continue in 2019 to spend the money that we spent in 18, it's projected we'll spend about $100,000 in chemicals with no guarantees whatsoever that we can be in compliance with the monthly average put on by IDEM. We were able to reach out, after reaching out and trying to find other options, we reached out to the city of Danville who had pretty much the exact same situation we had, with a low flow stream and with a very low copper number. The city of Danville contracted Ramble out of Virginia to come in and study their copper and to go to IDEM with the proposal of either raising their copper limit or, in the best case scenario, getting rid of their copper limit altogether based on the flow in the stream. They were, after going through that process, they were able to do that. They were able to actually remove their copper limit, and at a price of $125,000. The reason their price was so high was they were the first ones to go to IDEM with this. It's a very specialized situation. We reached out to other companies, and they just didn't have the resources or the knowledge in this area for them to go to IDEM on our behalf with some success, with some hopeful success. Ramble did. They went to IDEM on Danville's behalf and got that removed. With Danville being the first ones and kind of laying the groundwork, we saw a great cost benefit from that. And our cost do not exceed is actually $58,000, which is over half of what Danville saw. In this money, it is actually not all $58,000 all at once. They have this in phases, so we are not at risk of giving $58,000 and saying 2 weeks into it, saying, well, we're out of luck. It is phased into 4 different phases. The initial information gathering and screening is $6,000. The streamlined copper testing is $35,500. The support with IDEM communications and meetings is $11,000, and the final phase is the final report submission and permit modification request, and that is $55,000, which altogether would be the contract with them would be the do not exceed of $58,000. Like I said, the proposal to me seems like a great idea. With the wastewater staff, we actually met with the Danville city officials, went to talk to them about who they reached out to, and they reached out to multiple agencies to try to get help with this, and just to no avail, unfortunately. So, that did kind of contradict our bidding process, because we like to have multiple bids in any process we do, but with them reaching out and us not having any success in reaching out either, we just could not find anybody else that could offer a service like this to benefit us with IDEM, with the history of working with not only EPA but IDEM. So my recommendation is to approve the contract with Ramble for do not exceed of $58,000 to pursue this study.
Brian, just real quick for the public's sake, correct me if I'm wrong, but our extra copper, the amount we exceed IDEM's limit by is not considered dangerous by any means. However, our limit just is very low based on the study or the lack of a study, correct?
Yeah, so we actually have great success in meeting the daily copper limit. So it's not as if our numbers are just so over the top that they're environmentally an environmental impact on Prairie Creek where the outfall is. But it's our monthly average is such a low number where we struggle. And we're so close that, like I said, we hit it 7 out of 12 months. But in not hitting it 5 out of 12 months, we had 5 violations with IDEM. So we are very close. Since IDEM put this number on, I feel like the stream has actually increased. The amount of water in the stream has increased. But there has not been a study subsequent to that. So this will allow, IDEM will be involved in this the whole time. So we're not trying to supersede IDEM, and we're not trying to pull the wool over IDEM's eyes. They will be involved in this. They will see all the test data, and they will ultimately make the decision what we hope in our favor. So, IDEM is not going to be upset or caught off guard by this by any means. They will be involved in every phase. And, I think that when they see the numbers, they will come to the understanding that this is in the best interest for everybody. We're fortunate IDEM has not fined us, but there is a possibility that they could come in anytime and incorporate fines that a cost we would have to incur on top of the money we've already spent.
Thank you. Hats off to your group for being proactive. It sounds like you guys have been telling yourself about this for a while, so.
Thank you.
Yep. Anything else for Ryan?
No.
All right. If there's no other questions or discussion on the copper compliance study, I would entertain a motion.
I make a motion, we approve the proposal from Ramble for the not-to-exceed amount of $58,000 to assist with the process to adjust the copper limits to be compliant with IDEM and authorize general manager to sign pertinent documents.
Second.
Motion made by Bill, seconded by Jim, to approve the copper compliance study. Any other questions or discussion? All righty. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion carries. Thank you, Ryan. Looks like you're staying up there for the next item, Indianapolis Avenue force main relocation.
Yeah, and I didn't want to leave here without doing a PowerPoint, so I went ahead and put one together for everyone's enjoyment. This project is force main relocation Indianapolis Avenue. I have a few slides just going to outline the benefits of this project, and then when I'm done, if you have any questions during, feel free to ask. But when I'm done, I'll have some time to be able to answer any questions that you might have. I do have John Leitner from Butler Family and Seifert, who was involved in this process before I came into this role. So if there's anything that I can't answer, I'm hoping that he can, and so we can make sure and answer any questions that you guys might have. Our wastewater collection system is divided into 16 distinct sewer basins, which are shown on the map on the left-hand side of the screen. The two basins that we will be discussing are in the pink and green on the map, and they're labeled TFM08 and TFM06. And the diagram on the right is just basically a flow schematic, so you can see how the water flows from each basin and how it gets to the wastewater treatment plant. It doesn't, it's kind of, at the beginning I thought everything from one basin flowed to the wastewater treatment plant, but some basins empty into other basins, which go into the wastewater treatment plant. So that kind of just gives you an idea of how that flow, that process occurs. We did a fall monitoring data gathering during fall of 2018. And it was a great benefit. We monitored all 16 basins, and based on that data, we were able to not only determine where our trouble areas were, but able to get this project on the road in such a quick fashion because we already had the data. So the data was critical in showing us where our shortcomings were. And we have 10 locations throughout the system that are known issues that our ultimate goal, obviously, is to get rid of all 10 known issues. The project that we're talking about now will, if, in all probability, nothing's guaranteed 100%, but in all probability, it will eliminate 30% of our known issues. So 3 out of the 10 that we have throughout the town, this one project will eliminate 3 of those known issues, which is a great first step in conquering this project, or this situation. The 30% issue will be in basin TFM08. You can see where our other issues are, but this one will tackle TFM08. Based on the fall flow monitoring results, you can see from this graph that in basin TFM08, it is rated at 750 gallons per minute. And during the high flow, so when we had lots of rain, some infiltration, and lots of flow, we were actually we had actually 790 gallons a minute at times going through that basin, and just a 2-hour period, that could equal to about 4,800 gallons. And 2 hours is a pretty small window. It could be much longer than that, but just to give you an idea of how much flow goes through there, you're 4,800 gallons over your capacity in just 2 hours. And basin TFM 06, the monitoring showed that it had a capacity of 1,325 gallons per minute and only had a flow of 402 gallons per minute, which leads us to the reroute. By rerouting this force main, we would take away approximately 300 gallons per minute from TFM 08 and route it to TFM 06. And that would bring TFM 08 from above capacity to now about 260 gallons per minute below capacity. And you would still leave around a 600 gallons per minute cushion in TFM 06. So, if you did have a high flow or your flow data wasn't exactly correct, you still have a big enough cushion where you're still not putting a great deal of stress on that basin either. This is just kind of the map that we had from the basins, shows you from the Indianapolis Avenue lift station. It normally would flow and stay in the green area, and we're going to actually reroute that into the TFM 06 into the pink area. Here's an aerial view of the proposed relocation. We would bore underneath Indianapolis Avenue since it's new construction and we don't want to tear up that road or any part of that. So we would bore underneath that as to have minimal impact on any of the new improvements that the city has done in the past. We don't want to upset any of that. So we're going to do whatever we can to have the least amount of impact when this project occurs.
So you won't have to have any traffic control boring underneath the road?
There may be some for equipment purposes, but the actual, the road itself will not be disturbed, so we won't have to, redo the roadway and stuff like that. But, I don't know, I don't know offhand of what kind of equipment there would be. John might be able to speak on this.
Yeah, if anything, maybe a lane just for safety as far as the workers, but the actual roadway itself, as Ryan was saying, wouldn't be disturbed.
The total project cost is estimated between $180,000 and $215,000. That's including all construction cost, right-of-way cost, engineering cost, and inspection fees. In the 2019 wastewater budget, we did allocate $250,000 for this project. Estimated schedule is between 6 to 8 months upon start. So, I would like to just, move to approve, for you guys to move to approve the engineering services agreement for the force main relocation on Indianapolis Avenue with Butler, Fairman, and Seifert for not to exceed of $69,800, and authorizing general manager to sign the agreement. And something I did not touch on in this, but I do want to touch on is every time that we have a known issue in the system, it is a potential for an IDEM compliance issue. And ultimately our goal as a wastewater, as a utility in general, is to be in 100% compliance with IDEM in every aspect, drinking water, sewer collections, wastewater, any of that. So this is a big step in starting that process to bring us in complete compliance with IDEM, which ultimately, to me, in this role, is the ultimate goal, as long, especially since this is a budgeted item. So if there's any questions that I might or John might be able to answer, we'd love to hear from you. Yes, sir.
So a known issue is pretty much defined as raw sewage on the ground because of overflow. Is that correct?
It can be. We define it as a sanitary sewer overflow. But yeah, that can be part of it. There are other aspects to it, but that can be part of a known issue, absolutely. Okay. And this would eliminate anything like that in this area. It should eliminate anything like that in this area.
And also, we're talking about what's commonly referred to as pinch points in the system.
Yes, sir.
And if I have my information correct, if we take care of pinch points, that will also improve growth opportunities within the city core and the perimeter of the city core. Is that a proper understanding?
Potentially, yes. Now, you know, when you see that you have, let's say, a 500 gallons per minute free in a line, you know, you don't want to add a housing addition that's going to put it right at its maximum. So it does help, but you would still probably need, you know, an additional main or possibly another lift station, something to that effect. But this does help if there is in that basin any growth. It will help us manage that growth and help us make sure that we can not have any known issues, which is really where the monitoring, the flow monitoring comes in. Because with the lining projects that we do to stop infiltration and the flow monitoring, we can tell if a housing addition or a business does come online. That flow monitor is going to tell us kind of what flow we had before and what flow we have after, so that we can kind of manage that to where we don't, it's not so fast that we are causing downstream issues and further pinch points that may occur throughout the system.
And that's flow monitoring is a project that's underway, right?
Yeah, so
and this is part of the fruits of that project, correct?
Absolutely, yeah. We did it in the fall, and then we will do it again in the spring. And the nice thing about that is, you know, we'll have some data beforehand, so when we do we line part of the sewer to cut back on infiltration, we'll be able to see in the data if that lining project and if this force main project, we'll be able to see the benefits of that. And we'll have actual data instead of saying, well, I hope it does this or I hope it does that. We'll have data to back that up. So when we budget down the road for any of that, it will help also.
Yeah, let me add something. I don't want to interrupt John, but just to, I guess something I want to make sure I say about economic development is often we have people call and say, is sewer available in X location? And what it amounts to is that's a complicated question. We can't just say, is it available or isn't it? Will this pinch point fix it or not? It depends on how much flow, it depends on what's going in. Do you need a lift station or do you need a force main? What's being built? What are the elevations? So it's never just an easy question, because lots of times when they're doing economic development, often the developer wants to keep it secret because he's competing with another developer, and he wants to say, he wants to give you as little information as possible. Well, so we can't say for sure, yes, it's going to help development, but it might require something else. It might not. It depends on how big it is and what it is. And I was going to say this for later, but I wanted to do a shout out for Ryan, because Mr. Smith, he gave you a good long tour and taking it around our facilities, and we appreciate your questions, and I think he did a great job. It's probably spent a couple days on that, and you guys got to look at some facilities, and I think he did a great job on that. And we can continue that if you have more questions afterwards and go on with that. But John, I see you got up to talk. Did you have something you want to add? Or?
I wanted to add on to the flow monitoring. So we did the fall flow monitoring. We're going to do the spring flow monitoring, and that'll be, so we did a 60-day period in the fall. We're going to do a 45 to 60-day period in the spring. ADS is our sub-consultant that does that work. Right now, we don't have any permanent flow monitors built into the contract. We have it listed as an additional service, so it's just something we want to keep in mind as we go forward, seeing how important this data is turning out to be, the amount of flow monitors we might want. I don't think we'll ever recommend putting one in all 16 basins, but if there's 5 basins that are an issue, it might be worth looking at having, 1 to 5 put in permanently so that you really can see the data later. So that's not anything for today, but it'll be as we go forward, looking at, later in the year, next year's budget. It'd be good to note.
Yeah, I personally think that addressing these known issues and solving them is personally my top priority for being on this board. So I enthusiastically support this project.
Wonderful. I totally agree. It is a very high priority with me also.
Right. All right. So as Ryan mentioned, this project was budgeted for. Actually, it looks like the amount's under budget. Could possibly correct about a third of the known associated issues, and completion by the end of 2019, possibly?
Yeah, it showed John's calculations about a 6 to 8 month process.
Yeah, and that'll be, we talked about some of those, that schedule's all dependent on whether we want to get an easement or how we're gonna work with right-of-way. It could be shorter. That's kind of the worst-case scenario as far as that. And then just permitting. Thankfully, I think that section of Indianapolis Avenue is not part of INDOT, but we just want to double-check and make sure with the city.
Absolutely.
So you think this $69,800 could be more?
No, that's the top.
That's
So
the
that
top.
includes right-of-way.
Everything.
For 2 parcels, that would be all of the engineering services
right.
that we anticipate.
And it could be less.
It could be, yeah, if we find out we don't need the right-of-way services or engineering, we'll remove that from the agreement.
All righty, if there's no other questions for Ryan or John, I'd entertain a motion on item 7.
Let's see, my understanding, we need to have 2 motions. The first one would be to approve Indianapolis Avenue Lift Station Force Main Relocation Project. So perhaps we should do these 2 motions one at a time. So I move that we approve the project.
I second that.
All right, first motion by Aaron, seconded by Jim, to approve the Indianapolis Avenue Lift Station Force Main Relocation Project. Any other questions or discussion on that part? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and then anyone have a motion on the second portion?
I move to approve the engineering services agreement with Butler, Fairman, and Seifert for a not-to-exceed amount of $69,800, authorizing General Manager Ed Basquill to sign all pertinent documents.
Second.
Motion made by Aaron, seconded by Bill, to approve engineering services agreement with BFS, not to exceed amount of $69,800. If there's no other questions, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All righty, thank you, guys.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you. Good job.
Thank you.
Next item is new hire benefits action, and our general manager, Ed Basquill, is going to address the board on a policy.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'm not going to read right from the script. I just want to kind of tell you what goes on with this. Is first off, I want to thank Ryan Ottinger and Jeff Greeno. We've been sitting in interviews, interviewing a host of candidates for our lineman positions. And one thing I will say is that the utility lineman, that's a special position. I'm a former naval officer, sailor, and it's sort of like the code of the sea kind of thing. These are people that go out when it's cold and it's wet and it's rain. They climb the poles, dangerous job, and you have to have that sort of love for danger but be really smart and really safe at the same time. But the thing about this type of position, the reason I'm telling you all this, is that what happens is to become a journeyman lineman, you have to do an apprenticeship that takes 4 years. And we train people to do that when we hire apprentices. It costs about $300,000. Then they get a couple years experience, and what's been happening to us here at Lebanon Utilities is we spend that $300,000 and they get hired away by another utility, another local utility. So we spend the money and we make the investment, and instead of getting our return on the investment, they leave. And we have some good luck, and we have some good candidates, and we have some people that used to work here that even looking to come back. But what we're trying to do is be competitive. So the purpose behind my request here is that our policy is a good policy that we recently changed before I got here, but we're trying to be competitive so that we can start hiring away experienced, good people from other utilities. So what I was going to ask is that the board approve the request when we deviate from the current policy for 2 journeyman linemen only, and allow them to have vacation at my discretion as part of the negotiation without earning any more from the date of hire. And the idea is that so we can get these experienced people on board, because we have had a lot of turnover, and we can have 2 full crews, and we can really improve our electric department. Any questions?
How many days vacation do we want to?
I think that, I don't know that we need to get in the weeds on that. I think that that's going to be kind of the discretion of the general manager is what I would think, Bill. it's not going to exceed I don't think what we have down as far as total. It's just I think it's respecting more of the years served as journeyman linemen. And that's in response to the pressures and the competitiveness with other utilities that we have, because we did have a clean out at one point. We had a total change in the electric linemen. There was such a raid made. And I think with this movement, we'll be giving Ed the authority to compete effectively and attract the brightest and the best, and continue to support the efforts of our linemen, creating a safe working area. I mean, we want competent people around competent people.
And we want trained people.
Exactly.
That's not the question. So, I don't have a problem with it.
Well, I would just add too, Dan, and correct me if I'm wrong, we're treating this as a case-by-case basis. This doesn't.
Absolutely. This is not broadcloth.
This doesn't set anything in stone. This is a gray area that fortunately or unfortunately we have to address sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And if these two new journey linemen are hired, they will then become part of the normal vacation policy, to where to increase their vacation days from 10 to 15, they'd have to be in service at least 8 years with us.
And it sounds like they would fall under our normal policy. Is that right, Ed?
Yeah, they're not going to accumulate vacation any faster than anyone. Like as for instance, if we bring someone in at 3 weeks vacation, they're not going to get the 8 years and get 4. It's still going to be 3. They're not going to get 3 weeks until they get to 15 or whatever it is from memory, I want to say it's 15.
Yeah. So it's not going to go, we're not going to go over the maximum 25 days with.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. Thank you.
Right, yes.
Because I didn't get it said.
I mean, it could be,
Yeah,
okay.
I'm going to mind the store. I'm not trying to give anyone any more vacation than we have to from a business standpoint.
Right,
I'm just trying to be competitive, so.
You know, we're going to face, just as a sidebar, we're going to face the same challenges with the people in the wastewater treatment plant, water people. Their certifications are hard to obtain, and it's a process. So we as a board have to, I believe, have an open mind, again, to attract quality people with certifications, and because it's going to be a competitive market for all those people.
Right.
All right. Any other questions for Ed?
No.
All right. If not, I'd entertain some motions.
And I'd move to approve the request to deviate from current policy for the 2 journeyman linemen only, and allow General Manager Ed Pascal to negotiate with those people in an effort to hire the biggest and the best.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Dan, seconded by Jim. Any more discussion or questions? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, guys. Thank you, Ed. Motion carries. Next item is approval of the claims. Everyone had a chance to review the claims or have any questions about the claims?
If we pay the bills.
I'll second.
Jim, motion made by Jim.
Dan.
Dan, seconded by Jim.
Okay.
To approve the claims, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Next item is any other business.
I have one thing.
Yep.
I had a visit from the fire chief today who wanted to pass along a shout out to our electric crew because they had a problem with the utility pole. Our crew came right out. It wasn't even our pole, but they helped them fix the problem. Didn't point fingers or anything. Ended up being an AT&T pole that wasn't even ours to take care of. And honestly, AT&T hasn't responded to their call and fixed it yet. So we've only fixed the temporary, and fire chief's aware of that. I'm going to follow up with them. But kudos to Jeff Greeno and crew as far as their response and getting kudos from the fire chief. So.
Good job.
Speaks to the closeness of the community. Thanks, Ed.
And Ed mentioned earlier, but last week, Ryan Ottinger, the acting wastewater operations manager, took me on a tour of 15 water facilities within the city of Lebanon, and he was very professional and informative and friendly. So
good.
I appreciated that very much, and and understand the water system a lot better now. Thank you, Ryan.
Brian's middle name, isn't it? Friendly?
Yeah.
Anybody have anything else? Anybody from the public have any comments? All right, my notes say the next board meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, March 20th at 5 p.m. If there's nothing else, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
So just a second, did we open it up for public comment?
Yeah.
I missed that?
Yeah.
Excuse me, I'm
No,
sorry.
that's fine. Yeah, shout it out if anybody has anything. All right, motion made by Bill, seconded by Jim to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I assume no one's opposed, so we'll stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.